A used Tesla with 190,000 miles just sold for more than a brand new Toyota Corolla. Original battery, never replaced. Meanwhile, someone right now is skipping an EV because they heard the battery dies in 5 years and costs 20 grand to swap. What I found completely flips everything most people still believe about EV lifespan. Let's get into it. Ask almost any first-time EV buyer what they're most worried about, and you'll hear the same answer: the battery. Not the range, not the charging network, the battery. And the fear is specific. It goes something like this. EVs are basically giant smartphones. The battery degrades, the range shrinks, and eventually you're either stuck with a car that barely runs or facing a 5-figure replacement bill. You've heard the number: 10,000, 15,000, sometimes 20. That fear has kept a lot of people out of EVs, and honestly, in the early days, there was some logic to it. The first mass-market EVs launched with no track record. Nobody knew how these batteries would perform after 5 years, let alone 10 or 15. Manufacturers made promises, but promises aren't data. Here's what's changed. The fleet has aged. There are now enough EVs on the road with enough real-world miles on them that researchers, fleet managers, and independent analysts can actually see what happens to these batteries over time. And what they're finding doesn't match the fear. It matches something much more reassuring. Battery scientists describe the degradation curve as an S shape. There's a steeper drop early on, the first year or two, and then the curve flattens significantly. Degradation slows way down and stays slow for a very long time. That early drop is what triggered the smartphone comparison. But the long flat middle? That's where real-world EV ownership actually lives. And that middle stretch is lasting far longer than anyone originally projected. EVs have far fewer parts that wear out. Before we get to the battery numbers, it's worth stepping back and looking at the bigger picture. Because lifespan isn't about the battery, it's about everything else that can fail. A conventional gasoline engine contains over 2,000 moving parts, 2,000 components under constant heat, friction, and mechanical stress. Oil systems, fuel pumps, timing belts, alternators, exhaust systems, multi-speed transmissions, every one of those is a failure point. Every one requires maintenance. And at some point, the repair bill exceeds what the car is worth. That's how most gas cars actually die, not because the odometer hit some magic number, because the cost keeping them running stopped making sense. An electric drivetrain contains roughly 20 moving parts. No engine, no oil system, no traditional gearbox, no exhaust, fewer drivetrain components overall. Electric motors are remarkably simple, and they're designed for extreme durability. Many are rated over 1 million miles of operation. Regenerative braking reduces wear on brake pads and rotors, which means EV owners are often going 70,000 miles or more before their first brake service. Oil changes don't exist. Transmission service doesn't exist. Fuel system repairs don't exist. The mechanical case for an EV lasting a long time is strong before you even look at a single data point. Fewer parts mean fewer failure points. Fewer failure points means fewer reasons for the car to stop running. Real-world mileage data from early EVs. Now let's talk about what's actually happening out on the road. Geotab, a fleet telematics company, analyzed over 22,700 electric vehicles across 21 different models in Canada, the US, and Europe. This isn't a lab study. These are real cars, real drivers, real conditions. They're finding the average battery degradation rate across all vehicles was 2.3% per year. Let that number sink in. At 2.3% per year after 8 years, your battery still holds over 81% of its original capacity. After 10 years, you're sitting at around 77%. That's not a car on life support. That's a functional daily driver with real-world range. And that 2.3% includes the hard cases. Fleet vehicles racking up miles every day, hot climate drivers, frequent fast chargers, vehicles that stuck to lower power charging averaged just 1.5% degradation per year, projecting 88% capacity after 8 full years. A separate study out of the UK analyzed over 8,000 battery tests across 33 automakers. The average state of health across all tested vehicles was over 95% of original capacity. Even EVs that were 8 to 9 years old came in at a median of 85%. Cox Automotive has tested nearly 80,000 EVs at auction. The average battery health score across all of those vehicles was 92%. These aren't cherry-picked numbers from babied garage cars. These are fleet vehicles, rideshare cars, and daily drivers living real lives. And high-mileage examples are no longer rare. There are now documented cases of EVs exceeding 300,000 miles on original battery packs. A 2012 Tesla Model S with around 200,000 miles still delivers 220 miles of range, 83% of its original 265-mile rating. Independent tests comparing a Tesla Model 3 with 225,000 miles against one with 18,000 miles found less than 1% difference in efficiency on the same routes. Try finding a 225,000-mile gas car performing with 1% of its new condition. It doesn't exist. There's also the case of a 2008 Tesla Roadster, built before modern thermal management systems, before today's battery chemistry improvements, before the software optimizations current EVs receive automatically, still running its original battery with approximately 80% capacity after nearly 2 decades. If a first-generation battery built on early technology holds up that well, the packs going into vehicles right now are in a different league entirely. One more detail worth knowing. Among EVs that are 10 years or older, only about 8.5% have ever had a battery replacement. More than 90% of decade-old EVs are still running their original pack. That number comes from Recurrent, a research firm tracking over 30,000 EV drivers in real-world conditions. It's not a projection, it's a count. What actually wears out on EVs? So if the battery isn't the problem most people think it is, what does actually wear out on an electric car? The honest answer is mostly the same things that wear out on any car. Suspension components, tires, brake pads and rotors, though those last longer thanks to regenerative braking. Cabin electronics, interior materials, the 12-volt auxiliary battery that powers accessories, one of the more common service issues in EVs. And sometimes that's easy and inexpensive to replace. EVs are heavier than comparable gas cars because of the battery pack, which does put slightly more wear on tires. That's a real trade-off worth knowing. But the components that end most gas cars' lives, engine failure, transmission breakdown, catastrophic cooling system issues, those failure modes largely don't exist in an EV drivetrain. The things that kill gas cars aren't present in the same form. Software and electronics are the new reliability factor. Here's something that doesn't get enough attention in these conversations. Modern EVs are computers with wheels, and that changes what long-term reliability actually depends on. The battery management system in a modern EV is continuously monitoring cell temperatures, balancing charge across the pack, adjusting charge rates, and protecting the cells from conditions that would accelerate aging. That software is a major reason batteries are performing better than the early predictions suggested. But software also introduces a new variable. Long-term reliability now depends on software stability, the health of electronic modules, sensor systems, and infotainment hardware. These are the components that will determine whether a 10-year-old EV feels functional or frustrating. Early EV generations didn't have sophisticated thermal management and software. Current ones do, and that difference shows up directly in the degradation data. The newest vehicles are outperforming their predecessors, not because the chemistry changed dramatically, but because the software got smarter. Over-the-air updates means EVs can actually improve after purchase. Battery management can be refined. Charging behavior can be optimized. Range estimates can be recalibrated. In some cases, manufacturers have pushed updates that extended real-world range on vehicles already in the owner's hands. That's not something any gas car can do. Maintenance costs over time. The financial case for EV longevity isn't about the battery. It's about everything you're not spending money on. No oil changes, no transmission fluid, no spark plugs, no exhaust repairs, no fuel system service. Studies consistently show EVs cost roughly 40% less to maintain over their lifetime compared to equivalent gas vehicles. The gap compounds over years of ownership. A driver putting 15,000 miles a year on a gas car will spend thousands of dollars over a decade on services that simply don't exist for an EV owner. Brake costs are lower, servicing intervals are longer, And when you factor in charging costs, especially for owners who charge at home during off-peak hours, the per-mile cost of running an EV is significantly lower than gasoline. The upfront cost of an EV is typically higher. That's real. But the total cost of ownership, calculated over the full life of the vehicle, shifts considerably in the EV's favor once you account for what you're not spending. If you're finding this useful, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. There's more real-world EV content coming that could save you serious money. The expected lifespan of modern EVs. So what's the actual number? Based on current engineering targets, real-world fleet data, and manufacturer commitments, modern EV platforms are designed to last 15 to 20 years or 30,000 miles or more before major drivetrain replacement becomes likely. Every major automaker selling EVs today backs its battery with at least an 8-year, 100-mile warranty. Many go further. Hyundai and Kia now offer a 10-year coverage on select models. Here's the thing most people miss about those warranty numbers. Manufacturers don't warranty products right at the edge of their failure point. They set the warranty floor before what their testing showed the product can actually deliver. The warranty is the minimum, not the ceiling. If an automaker is legally committing that your battery will hold at least 70% of its original capacity for 8 years, they've already built a margin of confidence on top of what their internal data showed. They know it will likely go further. The US Department of Energy projects today's EV batteries will last between 12 and 15 years in moderate climates, and 8 to 12 years in more extreme conditions. A Nature Energy study using UK vehicle data put the average EV lifespan at 18.4 years, and that dataset leaned on older EV generations that lack the thermal management and battery chemistry improvements in vehicles being built right now. Current vehicles should perform better, not worse. The average American keeps a car for 8 to 12 years. Modern EV batteries are designed to outlast that window entirely. For most owners, the realistic scenario isn't replacing the battery. It's selling or trading the car while the battery still has significant life left, passing a healthy pack onto a second owner. What this means for buyers today. 15 years ago, the concern about EV battery life was legitimate. Nobody had real data. The comparisons to smartphones weren't unreasonable. The fear made sense. That time has passed. The data we have today, from tens of thousands of real vehicles driven millions of real miles across multiple climates and use cases, tells a fundamentally different story than the one most people still carry around. Average degradation of 2.3% per year, 8-year-old EVs averaging 85% battery capacity, high-mileage vehicles regularly hit 200,000 and 300,000 miles on original packs. Battery failure rates on modern vehicles are under 0.5%. EVs are not giant smartphones. They are purpose-built vehicles with powertrains designed for extreme durability, backed by warranties that manufacturers are expanding, not shrinking, as their confidence in the technology grows. If you've been holding off because of battery worries, you've been carrying a fear that 15 years of real-world data says you don't need to carry anymore. Drop a comment below. What surprised you most about these numbers? And subscribe for more real-world EV content that cuts through the noise and gives you what actually matters.